And speaking of which, how about the women's basketball in our state? Akiem Bailum is joining us now from Prep Hoops, South Carolina. Akiem, sorry to have you on after a day after Dawn Staley and her team are shocked on the road at Oklahoma. Your colleague Andrew Baxley was telling us you're a big Dawn Staley Gamecock fan. Did you stay up and watch the game?
It's interesting. I didn't actually watch the game because I was actually down. Sorry about that. I was actually down at Williston Elko covering a high school game between WE and Bamberg Earhart. It's interesting because Williston Elko actually went into that game, I believe, eighth ranked among 1A teams, and Bamberg Earhart just blew them out of the water. So I didn't have a chance to watch the Oklahoma South Carolina game, but I did read about it a little bit earlier, and it was a little bit of a surprising result with the Gamecocks taking the L. But if it's one thing we know about Dawn Staley coach teams is that they know how to show up in March and early April. So and the overall landscape of the college game is a lot more even than it used to be. So yeah, it was a bit of a surprising loss considering where South Carolina was ranked. But I feel like Dawn Staley and those women on the Gamecocks, I feel like they'll be okay.
Akeem, thanks for joining us, man. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of girls basketball in South Carolina, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and then tell us about Prep Girls Hoops South Carolina.
So my background is very varied. So I'm of course I'm in South Carolina right now, but I wasn't born here. I'm not a native of SC. I was actually born on Long Island, New York. And I'm a graduate of Georgia State University 2015. So I've had the opportunity to work at a lot of places. I've been at the Concord Independent Tribune for a couple of years. I did some work with a couple of Georgia papers in south of Atlanta. I previously worked at the Courier Journal in Louisville, Kentucky, and I'm also doing a lot of WNBA work with this website Beyond the W. So as well as some softball work with Prep Softball, which happens to be a sister site of Prep Girls Hoops. And it's interesting because this past I believe November, I was actually in Georgia for the softball state championships in Georgia because softball in Georgia is a fall sport. So I've had the opportunity to be able to do a lot of things, and now I've been with Prep Girls Hoops ever since 2020. Previously, when I was in my previous time with Prep Girls Hoops, I was under Brett Swanee. He was the editor in chief, if you will, of the South Carolina site before they decided to promote me to that position. But Swanee is doing great work as well with his Swanee's round ball review. So definitely shout out to Swanee. But yeah, when I first got the call that I was promoted to basically site editor for Prep Girls Hoops South Carolina, I was like, oh my gosh, like what is it that I'm doing here? I have so much now to do, updating rankings, adding new names to the database. But I feel like I've been able to really settle in as of late, and now it's just second nature for me. So I've really been able to enjoy the transition that I've made from just a typical writer to now their site editor. And there's so much to talk about really when you think about South Carolina high school girls basketball.
Well, that's great. Akeem, I opened up with mentioning Dawn Staley in South Carolina college basketball. Have you seen the popularity that affect the popularity to all the way down to girls basketball across the board? In other words, are more people showing up to those games and supporting the young women in our state because it's just they're seeing the WNBA more popularized. They're seeing college basketball on TV, women's basketball every night. Has it affected girls basketball as well?
I believe so. I believe so. And I think especially in this state because there's so much of a national lens on this state, not just this state, but also really the Carolinas region because yeah, South Carolina has been so successful in terms of the fact that they've won 3 national championships in the past few years. And I think that that definitely has indeed translated into an increased level of popularity, for the girls' game when you think about high school, when you think about AAU, because now when people think about, South Carolina, everybody is thinking, okay, who's going to be the next Ashlyn Watkins? Who is going to be the next Mylasia Fulwiley? Who is going to be the next Joyce Edwards? So there's so much of a lens now because of the names that are homegrown from this state, as well as from this region. Also, Kyome McMiller, who's now at Penn State, she previously played at Trinity Collegiate. So there's such a lens now when you think about who's coming out of this state, where now everybody is thinking, okay, because maybe folks in the past were probably sleeping on the girls' basketball scene down here, but I feel like that's no longer the case. So I think that there is increased attention, and it is indeed translating into increased support. One of the things that definitely sticks out to me is almost every single time I cover a girls' basketball game, somebody's wearing the Asia Wilson A1s, or maybe even the whole team is wearing the Asia Wilson A1s. So it definitely has had a domino effect, and I feel like it's had an overall positive domino effect on the girls' scene here in SC.
Keem, that's fantastic. And that was one of my questions: is how was Asia Wilson's presence in the South Carolina high school girls basketball scene, and then Gamecocks affected the whole entire state? And it sounds like it's quite a bit. Let me ask you this: so for those people who are covering Gamecock women's basketball recruiting, or just big time recruiting for girls basketball, period. Who do we need to be, watching on a week in to week out basis, player wise, from across the state?
Well, I currently have Selena Grant at North Augusta as my number one ranked overall as far as 2026s. And if I remember correctly, I believe she is still unsigned. So that is a name that I would definitely be on the lookout for. Selena Grant has already built a state championship resume. You're definitely going to build a state championship resume when you're under the tutelage of Al Young at North Augusta. So that's definitely a name I would certainly be on the lookout for. There's also a couple of names that are certainly intriguing at the top of my 2027 list. One of them is Kalia Hartwell, who is their big up at West Side. And at first, she kind of came in and she was a little bit raw talent-wise, but she has really developed into one of the premier bigs across South Carolina. And it seemed like every single week she's posting about a Division I offer that she's receiving. So Kalia Hartwell is definitely one of the names that I would be on the lookout for. Another one at South Point is Janiyah Cunningham, who, if I remember correctly, she plays the same exact position as Kalia Hartwell, and she too is also a D1 prospect. So I would certainly be on the lookout for her. When you look at the 2028 class, I would definitely keep an eye on names like Kaylee Lucas at South Point, Taylor Lee Sutton at Keenan, Madison Pojani at First Baptist. So if I remember correctly, all three of those are guards, so they're all backcourt players. So I would certainly be checking for them as well. I have Ashlyn Evans at Burns, who before they just lost to Dorman, if I remember correctly, Burns was previously undefeated. But I have Ashlyn Evans as my number one ranked as far as 2029s are concerned. Another name among the 2029 class to be on the lookout for is Madeline Dates at Goose Creek. And she, similar to Evans, is already starting to build a bit of a national profile. Those are a couple of 2029 names. 2030, Layla Singletary at Irmo. She's an 8th grader, and I saw her drop a 30 some odd point performance at a recent tournament, and I believe she dropped back-to-back 34-point performances back during the tournament schedule. So Layla Singletary at Irmo is another name that I would certainly be on the lookout for. But yeah, there is definitely talent widespread throughout the state.
How about that? We're talking to Akiem Bailum from Prep Girls Hoops here on Four Quarter Friday. Akiem, you just mentioned Burns. Burns came up there number one in the most recent rankings, 5A Division I. And we talked about that region in boys basketball with your colleague, Andrew Baxley. Let's talk about it in girls basketball. Burns, Dorman, Spartan High, all three in the top 10. It is the state champion in that group.
It very well could be. It very well could very well be when you think about, when you think about the teams that are in that region. And that's why I was especially paying a lot of attention to Spartanburg and what they were able to do early on, because the thing with Spartanburg is, they have some talent on their team as well. When you think about Azaria Sims, you think about Deasia Bridges, you think about Kaylee Nelson. I was watching a lot of Spartanburg in the early portions of the season. And one of the things that stuck out to me was, yeah, they got out to a great start. But at the same time, the one thing that definitely scared me, like you said, was that region. Because you think about teams like Burns, you think about teams like Dorman, you think about teams like Gaffney, you even think about a team like Riverside, led by Kendall Horosky. And the reason why I bring up Riverside is because Riverside, Riverside, they previously won a state championship just a couple of years ago when they were a 4A team. A couple of years ago, they beat AC Flora at the Florence Center for the 4A state championship. So, and I just recently watched Riverside at the She Got Next MLK Classic, and they put forth a really, really dominant performance. The thing with Riverside, though, is that they're young. So that's kind of the knock against Riverside. But when I heard about that Burns Dorman result, the first thing I was thinking was, okay, that could very well be a 5A Division I upper state championship preview. So when you think about the teams in that region, there's a good chance that the state champion could very well be from that region, because that's one of the toughest regions in the state, especially for 5A, where the talent's going to be deep.
Akiem, you mentioned that you were at the MLK Bash over, I think it was at C.A. Johnson, if I'm not mistaken, in Columbia this past Monday, was it? This week is going by so quick. Tell us a little bit about that tournament. Like, what did you see there from all the teams, girls-wise?
Well, I wasn't necessarily at that that tournament. I was actually at I was at JL Mann. I was at the She Got Next MLK
That's
Classic.
right.
That was at JL Mann, and I believe there were 16 teams, 8 games overall, and there were definitely some standout performances. But the one standout performance that certainly sticks out to me was what Jada Aiken was able to do for Malden. And Malden is another one of the teams to beat, obviously, when you look at 5A D1. Aiken had a 30-point performance for the Mavs up there. So and like I said, Malden is dangerous. They're led by Zara Lehman. Of course, I mentioned Jada Aiken. I didn't mention Jalela Ligon as well, and Monty McIver. So yeah, that performance from Jada Aiken when she dropped 30 points, and I believe they were playing Ben Lippen at the time. And Ben Lippen's actually been one of the better 4A Skeeza teams. They're a young team, but they've been one of the better 4A Skeeza teams. So Jada Aiken's performance when she dropped those 30 points, that was the one that really stuck out to me when I was up at JL Mann for that for that showcase.
Well,
Well,
Akiem, we can't
last
think.
note about Martin Luther King Bash, okay? Just kind of leave. North Augusta put it on Goose Creek. 2 top teams in this state from 2 different divisions, 61-36. That's a big result right there.
That's North Augusta for you. I mean, there's a reason as to why, they win in March. They win in February and March. But it's going to be tough in 4A. When you think about South Point, West Side, as well as Camden, who's back in the mix as well. So 4A is always tough.
That's
4A is definitely always tough.
We're going to have to start a win of the week segment just based on that. That is, as you said, Steve, a big time result. Akiem, we can't thank you enough for joining us. We're certainly going to have you back on. As we let you go, let us know which the next game you're going to see, and how can everybody follow you with Prep Girls Hoops here in South Carolina?
Well, first, if you're going to talk about win of the week segments, I think you definitely have to talk about maybe North Myrtle Beach and what they were able to do at the Kings Classic. There's a reason why they're undefeated and top ranked in 5AD2. So be on the lookout from North Myrtle Beach, lower state 5AD2 participants from last year. But yeah, definitely follow me. I'm at Akiem Bailum on X. I'm at Akiem Bailum _ on Instagram, and also follow Prep Girls Hoop South Carolina. So I'm gonna hunker down probably for the next few days. As we ride out this snowstorm or ice storm or sleet storm or whatever it is that we're supposed to be getting. But I'm actually planning on going to Gaffney and Eastside. I think that's going to be the next game that I go to, because I've seen Eastside. Eastside was at the She Got Next MLK Classic, but I haven't seen Gaffney yet. So I want to get a look at Gaffney and see what they're all about. But yeah, I'm all over the place for sure.
Akiem, we really appreciate you. We appreciate Andrew Baxley. Oh, I said we we're going to let you go, but hang on. 10 more seconds with you. We're doing this with every guest. We're creating a food trail throughout South Carolina. Andrew Baxley just told us we've got to go to Empire Pizza in Rock Hill. Now, they've got New York style, and you're from up there in Long Island. So you're a transplant here to South Carolina. Where have you eaten? Where do you recommend we go pregame meal if we're going to catch a meal somewhere in South Carolina?
Well, there is a really good, I'm really big on Chinese food. And there is a really good Chinese place. I believe it's Asian Express, that's actually right up the road from where I live here in Columbia. So, really good chicken, really good rice, really good menu. So definitely check that out if you're trying to grab some, pregame grub.
I love it. Who had Asian Express on their bingo card today?
I don't make it.
It is what it is.
Too much anymore with Chinese food, but if you're ever in Lexington, Akiem, you got to get to Anti, man. Anti is the spot in Lexington.
Sounds like a plan. Sounds like a plan for sure. I'll definitely keep that in my notes.
All right, man.
All right, that's wonderful. Thank you, Akiem. Thank you so much.
We're living for the glory of a 4-quarter Friday.